What was it that we needed to do as a child in order to have our needs met? Welcome to the Alive and Aligned podcast, a show dedicated to helping you live a life of truth and share your fullest gifts with the world. I'm your host, Pete Byrne, and I'm here to open your mind to new perspectives, to introduce you to some epic humans who are already out there living their deepest truth. So now just grounding in, taking a breath, letting go of anything you're still holding on to from today, and just opening up to receiving this episode now. Let's dive on in. Gentlemen and ladies, welcome to this episode of the Alive and Aligned podcast. It is a solo episode and it is called The Patterns Don't Lie. So I'm going to start us off with a little analogy, okay? Maybe something you've recognized in your life, okay? Have you ever noticed, maybe there's one person, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a colleague, someone just in your life who seems to have it all together. They just, they've got it dialed in business. They've got great friendships. They seem confident. They're in good shape. Everything's going well for them. And you're like, wow, this person really has life dialed. And then you see them in their intimate relationship and they behave like a 5-year-old. You ever get that? Do you know anyone like that? Okay. What I want to talk about today is the patterns of behavior that we can be acting out and that can be activated in us by certain situations, certain people, and where they come from, and how we can learn about ourselves and learn about others and learn to have compassion and empathy for the human condition through the lens of patterns of behavior. So let's start out by thinking like this. When I look at a person, okay, I split them into two halves. Okay. On the left side over here, we have the person, and that is their essence. That's their soul. That is their, divine being who is only pure and good and whole. Okay. And I hold that true for everyone. I believe honestly and truly that every person, every human deep down is good. Okay. That is one of my assumptions about life that I like to hold. I believe that no matter how evil or wrong someone is being, they're only acting out of patterns. Okay, but at their essence, they are pure and whole and good. And it's only their experience of life and what they've learned and based on what they've experienced that they're doing the best that they can. Even if that's like doing some pretty horrific shit, they're still doing the best that they can. Okay, and that has been an assumption that has allowed me to find really the good in people who don't look very good on the surface, put it that way. So I really recommend it to you, first of all, to try that practice. Just when someone is screaming at you or someone is doing something that triggers the shit out of you, okay? Just really check in and say, like, what could be the loaded gun? What could be the gun that's been held to this person's head that's forcing them to do this, okay? Because if we're always doing the best we can and we're always acting out of our, highest intention, okay, then maybe someone's action to steal or to kill or rob is just a pure expression of their own internal pain and trauma, that if we were able to work with that and help them to let go of that, then actually at the surface or beneath the surface, we come back to this pure whole soul underneath. So that's on the left side over here. But on the right side, okay, whole other ball game. We've got the patterns, okay? So what's the story with the patterns, okay? When I speak about somebody, okay, and I say, John, he's really emotionally immature, or he's a bit narcissistic, okay? I'm not speaking about John like soul John and like his essence. I'm speaking about his patterns of behavior, okay? So separating these two and dividing the human and the soul from the patterns of behavior allows us to be more real with how others are showing up and how we're showing up, okay? It allows us to detach from this identity of like, I am a people pleaser instead of I have a pattern of people pleasing. Hear the difference, okay? If I say I am a people pleaser, then I now, in order to be me, have to please. I have to identify with that. I have to do that things to be consistent with my identity that I've unconsciously created for myself. However, if I choose to switch that to I have a pattern of people pleasing, then it's like saying I have a pattern of waking up at 7 a.m. and drinking coffee and going to the gym. I can change that pattern if I want to, just like I can change my pattern of people pleasing. So that's really empowering, and it gives us back this feeling of we're in control of our lives instead of being the victim all the time. Oh no, I was this happened to me, and now I'm a people pleaser, and that's just how it is. It's not very empowering. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't sound great. So here's the thing. When we talk about the patterns, which is over here on the right side, okay, we need to think about what was it that we needed to do as a child in order to have our needs met, okay? Based on, we're born into an environment with no real tools how to cope. We are purely taking cues off our caregivers and off our environment, okay? And from our childlike perspective, like our brain of 6 months or 3 years or 7 years, we are always doing the best thing that we can. We're coming up with the best available strategy from that, infantile mindset in order to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel worthy, and whatever strategy we find is best, it becomes hardwired into our system, okay? And we will unconsciously recreate that and repeat it forever and ever until eternity, unless we realize that it's actually not super efficient and not a great way of having our needs met, and we consciously do the work to change it. So when I'm sitting here talking about patterns, okay, I'm looking at, and we talk, I mentioned John, who's emotionally immature. I'm not sentencing him to a life of emotional immaturity. I'm saying, John, you've got the capacity. You've got the ability to change, okay? And I trust deep down that underneath all your your tantrums as a grown adult, you are a good person. And you have that essence. And no matter what is happening on the surface, it's as a result of the patterns that you've taken on throughout your life in order to have your needs met, like to be loved, to feel safe, to feel enough, to feel worthy, all these things. So by separating the two, once again, we get to hold John in his, highest good and see him as a pure and loving soul while not accepting any of his horseshit behavior. So this explains. Maybe you're kind of starting to draw some dots together in your mind right now and think, oh, Jesus, yeah, that person who does that, they behave in that way. And what could be, the question that I want you to start asking in your life is, what could be the loaded gun to this person's head that's forcing them to do this behavior? So one example of this is, let's say you've got an addiction to alcohol, and every time you feel stressed, you reach for the bottle. And it creates a shame spiral because you shouldn't be doing it, but yet you keep doing it. Maybe it's that you eat sugar. Maybe that you gossip. Maybe that you keep going back to that toxic ex-partner. Whatever it is. Something that you're doing that you don't feel good about, okay? That you don't enjoy and don't consciously, like when you think about it and you talk to others about it, you don't want to do it, but yet you just keep doing it. And it creates this negative spiral where you're like now shaming yourself for doing that behavior. Now, what if you were to have some empathy and think about it like this? Imagine you see a man cross the road and there's a woman there standing on the corner, and this man runs up and punches that woman and steals her bag and runs off. How would you judge that man? You'd probably say, well, he's an asshole. Like, he just robbed that helpless woman. Like, why would he do that? We don't understand why he's doing it, and therefore we judge him as a bad person, okay? Whereas if we come back to this essence of like, he's a good person at heart, what if you knew that across the street, there was a man standing with a gun, pointed at that man, and he said, if you don't go and punch that woman and steal her bag, I will kill you and all of your family. Now do you judge that man as a bad person? Or do you say, well, fair enough, yeah, fucking take the bag, punch the woman, whatever. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't make what he's doing right. It doesn't make it an acceptable behavior. However, we can understand the why. We can understand deeper. We know now that there's a loaded gun pointed at him, forcing him effectively to take that action, which is not acceptable or right by moral standards usually. So when we come back to the negative behaviors that we might have in our lives, such as alcohol or eating sugar or gossiping or going back to toxic partners, if we can have some compassion and empathy for ourselves, first of all, by separating ourselves and saying, okay, this is not me. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not a love, hate, addictive relationship person. I'm not a sugar addicted person. I have a pattern of drinking alcohol. I have a pattern of attracting toxic partners, okay? And then we can step back and look at the pattern. What is the unmet need? Or what is the, what is it that I've developed earlier probably in my life as a strategy for having a deeper need met? What is the gun, the loaded gun that could be pointed at me, forcing me to do this? Where if we look at a cost-benefit analysis, okay? If I have a choice between drinking alcohol and feeling 20 years of trauma that I've never looked at, alcohol seems like a great idea. And the body will always choose that unconscious behavior and choose that pattern. Not 10 times out of 10, it's going to do it, because why would it do anything else? Okay. It's like if you've learned a route to drive to work, okay, and you know it gets you there. You know that there could be other routes to get you to the office quicker. Maybe it takes you an hour. Maybe you're sitting in traffic for an hour and it's not great. You don't enjoy it and you hate driving in traffic, but it works. It gets you from A to B. Okay. The alternative is you sit at home, you don't get paid, and then you can't live anymore. So, you got to do it. Okay. It's the best you got. We're doing the best we can. However, if you were to identify and go on the 10,000 foot view, okay, and look at your life and say, wow, I noticed that I'm driving for an hour every day in traffic to work. And then you had someone show you from that 10,000 foot view. Did you know that there's a 20-minute route that you could take, and it's through a nice field and there's mountains and greenery and trees and it's pleasant, How many times would I have to show you that new route before you start choosing that every day? And this is what I believe is at the core of changing our patterns of behavior and how we meet our needs in the world, because everything that we're doing is the best that we can do based on the gun that's pointed at our head. And as soon as we can take a step back and get enough, clearance and have the support and guidance of someone to work with us and spot these patterns in our lives, that's when we start to really see these shortcut routes that were always available, but we never knew about because no one ever showed us that there was a 20-minute route available to the office. They only ever showed us the hour route and told us about how hard life was to have to drive in traffic for an hour every day, but that's just how life is and you're going to have to put up with it. So that's what you did to meet your needs. However, how good is life when we realize that there's an easier way, that we no longer have to live by the old paradigms and the old ways of meeting our needs that were passed down from generations, from our parents, from their parents, from their parents' parents, and never talked about. No one ever went into and looked at patterns of behavior. They just got on with life. They did their thing. They worked their job. They showed up. They put food on the table and they did their best. They were always doing their best. However, we have the luxury of being in an age when personal development is available. You are sitting here listening to this. You are working on yourself as a result, okay? You have the ability to change these deeper patterns. Whatever patterns of behavior are controlling your life or influencing your life and that you're not happy with, what I want you to do first of all, okay, is to just first of all separate yourself from what that pattern is. So identify the pattern. I am a people pleaser. No, I have a pattern of people pleasing. Maybe your pattern is attracting those partners who take advantage of you, okay? In that situation, super easy to play victim. It's other people. Oh, it's these, these guys or these girls. Yeah, like it's their fault. It's nothing to do with me. However, what's your strategy? What is the need that you're trying to meet by attracting those partners? Well, this is what feels maybe safe and normal for you in intimacy, because that was how your parents or one of your caregivers showed up, okay? That unavailability, and the way that you get your need of worthiness met is by winning the approval of unavailable people. Like that is literally your hardwired way of feeling worthy in the world, because it's what you always had to do to feel worthy. So if you've never learned what a safe and balanced relationship feels like, of course you're going to continue to attract toxic people into your life so that you can continue to feel worthy by winning their approval. However, if you learn that it's way more fulfilling long-term and sustainable to attract in balanced and regulated people who have their shit together and aren't like acting out their own traumas and there to just basically screw you over for their own, whatever pattern they're playing out, okay? Then you start to find that 20-minute route. You're no longer going through, waiting through traffic going, why is it so hard? You now have removed that gun to your head. The gun being, I need to feel worthy. I need to feel love. And this is the only way I know how. It's the only way I've ever been taught. And I've carried that into my adult life. So, recognizing that pattern, the part that you play in it, taking back your power and doing the inner work by yourself, or it's definitely easier with a mentor or a coach or someone who can help you see your own shit. Someone who can step back and do that Sherlock Holmes thing, who can take all the information about the situation that you're too stuck in to realize what's happening and take all of that, break it down into the clear, this is the pattern, this is what's happening. It's logical, it's understandable, it's unavoidable. And you then you have the power then to recognize it in your day-to-day life, to feel and see when that's coming up, when that behavioral pattern arises. And then you have the chance to notice it, to laugh about it, and then to change it, which is cool. You get to change these patterns. So I'm going to close this today with a little fun song just to anchor this in. But the main thing I want you to take away from this is something I could do like a 10-hour audiobook on probably. But the essence of this short solo podcast is that whatever patterns you notice in the people in your life and notice in yourself, you first want to separate. We've got the human, the soul on the left, and the patterns on the right. They both coexist. We want to assume that everyone is always doing their best and they're pure and whole at the core. If they're doing something that seems morally wrong or bad, what could be the loaded gun that's pointed at their head? What could be the thing that's forcing them, probably unconsciously, to take that action which you're judging and labeling them as a bad person for? And when it comes to our lives and eventually the lives of others, how can we take responsibility for our patterns? What could be the loaded gun that's forcing us to take that 1 hour through traffic that we never knew any other way and that we now get to look at and to laugh at and to change and repattern? And that is the deep and lasting transformation. That's what we're all about. You tell me that you've done the work when you look me in the eye. But words can be deceiving, but your patterns don't lie. Now you're choking back your anger while you're preaching love and light. Bypassing your feelings, but your patterns don't lie. Well, now I don't think you're bad at heart. You're just unaware of the shit that's in your basement that you still need to clear. Well, you told me that you're 34, but now you're acting 5. Hijacked by your feelings, yeah, your patterns don't lie. Yeah.